Okay, I would like to ask you some questions. So if I'm learning Spanish with you, am I going to be able to understand Latin America speakers?
Oh yeah, because I'm from Spain, right? Yeah, well, it's a very short answer, yes. Spanish shares 95% of vocabulary. We have 20 Spanish-speaking countries, so Spanish shares 95% of vocabulary and 99.9% of grammar. So short answer is yes. I always put the same example. Imagine that you have Mexican friends, okay? And you learn Spanish with a Colombian teacher. Are you going to be able to understand your Mexican friend? Yes. Are you going to be able to understand slang? No. But now imagine that you learn Spanish, Mexican Spanish, with a Mexican teacher. Are you going to be able to understand Mexican people? Of course. Are you going to be able to understand slang? No. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Meaning that the regional or the differences among countries are there. But at the end of the day, Spanish is a very universal language. And what you have to do, both as a teacher and as a student, is to get as much exposure as possible to as many different accents as possible. Because at the end of the day, you have a universal language in front of you. It's a pity that you learn Mexican Spanish, but then you don't understand the Dominicans. That should not happen.
All right. What about Netflix or this type of platforms? Do you think that anybody can learn Spanish with that just by watching series or films?
Not just by watching TV shows and movies, but TV shows and movies are definitely helpful. If you are an upper intermediate, you have to watch Netflix and TV shows because you have to get a lot of immersion, a lot of exposure. Mm-hmm. But if you're a beginner, watching Netflix is like going to the gym and trying to lift 300 pounds the very first day. If you want to learn the language, you need a lot of comprehensible input, meaning that you have to understand between the 75 and 95% everything that you learn, and then you gradually increase the difficulty of that content up until you get it to native content, to Netflix content. So if you're a beginner, avoid Netflix because you're just gonna get frustrated. We all have friends who love anime, Japanese anime, and they've been watching Japanese anime for 30 years now, and they know zero Japanese. It's not because they're dumb. It's just because, it's not the most efficient way of doing it.
So it's not efficient if you've got a basic level.
Exactly. But again, it gets to a level in which you have to do it. Plus, there's a psychological, emotional part of learning through Netflix that's very helpful. To put an example, I'm learning Greek. Sometimes I watch videos in Greek, although I don't understand anything, but I need to motivate myself. So you also have that emotional, psychological. Psychological side.
All right. Something else. What if a student doesn't have enough time or the schedule is really tight in order to learn? What would you recommend him?
I mean, you need time. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to be, just with 5 minutes a day, you'll have... No, but between, let's say, maybe not 5, but between 15 to 30 minutes a day, every single day, you can make huge progress. If you know what to do and how to do it. If you have a plan, if you have a lot of context, if you learn through context, if you learn through comprehensible input, you'll get to that point. Even if you don't have that much time. Of course, the more time you spend learning, the better you get. Mm-hmm. But if you have a pretty hectic life and a very busy schedule, you don't need hours a day.
So the guide is essential at that point.
Sorry?
The guide. To have a guide is essential.
Oh yeah, the guide is essential. Again, consider if you have a structure and if you have a game plan, everything is possible because it will be adapted to you.
All right. What about the immersive experiences? Should I move to Spain to learn Spanish?
Okay. There's a very misconception here. Immersion is key. Okay. Problem. People think that moving to, Argentina is going to solve their problems, linguistically speaking. So, I'm going to move to Colombia. I'm going to live with my Colombian girlfriend's family and I'm going to learn Spanish. That doesn't happen. Same way that you don't learn Netflix or you don't watch Japanese anime and immediately learn Japanese. Same thing happens here. Not because you are in, let's say, Colombia, you're going to learn Spanish. That's not going to happen. Plus, people don't know that natives are not that good talking to foreigners. So sometimes you expect, for some reason, you expect getting to a country and people are going to speak to you and people are going to be nice, but people are not going to be the patient or the know-how to talk to you. So it's a very overrated experience going to another country. It's good, again, if you know how to do it. But believe me, I can move now to Japan or to Turkey, and I'm not going to learn any Turkish. So you have to know how to do it. You need to have an immersion at home, and you need to have an immersion field of comprehensible input. Again, immersion is key as long as the things you get immersed with or immersed by, I don't know how to say this, are comprehensible for you.
Definitely. What about vocabulary? What if I'm learning vocabulary, but after some weeks I'm forgetting everything I get?
Well, first of all, it's okay if you forget things, okay? The more times you forget and relearn the same word, the deeper it goes into your memory. So sometimes we get very frustrated with vocabulary, but actually you need to forget it in order to retain it.
All right.
That's the first thing. Second thing is that I would say people focus a lot on lists and vocabulary lists. And when I say lists, I mean lists of both words and sentences. And whereas that's fine, at the end of the day, it's a matter of context. Let me put you an example. If you read a text or if you read a dialogue, or if you watch a dialogue, a lot of times of two people, maybe, I don't know, talking about their childhood or talking about whatever topic, you are going to learn that vocabulary. Vocabulary is something that people, again, get very frustrated about, but at the end of the day, it's a matter of exposure. A lot of exposure, a ton of exposure.
So should a student have a list of vocabulary to keep revising?
Sometimes it helps. I have a lot of, especially for super beginner people that have a struggle memorizing basic vocabulary. It helps. It definitely helps, and helps doing it. Spaced repetition. So the easier it gets, the longer you space the time of doing that, and the more difficult it is, the more you do it. And I meet myself. I don't know if that was clear or not, but it helps. But I would say vocabulary lists are only recommendable for people who either have a lot of memoristic problems, or for people who need Spanish for something very specific. Let's say nurses.
All right.
Doctors. Exactly. They need to have a certain vocabulary in that language. But if you're like me and you just want to learn the language to communicate with people, and that's all. Personally, I don't like to focus that much on vocabulary because it's something that it sticks to you.
All right.
Naturally.
Okay. One just last question. What about grammar? Is there that much grammar as people say in Spanish?
Yes, it's a very grammatical language, if you ask me. But I think grammar has been demonized over these past years. Oh, you don't have grammar. Oh, grammar is hell. Grammar is actually necessary. Problem is that in the traditional school system, you usually have grammar, and grammar is very separated from speech. So what I always propose is to, first of all, get grammar in a contextualized way, meaning that before giving the explanation, I show you a text or, a conversation, something with that grammar. Maybe some guy talking about their last vacation, or some people talking about what they're going to do in summer. And then I'll explain to you the future tense, past tense, whatever. Right. And then we go back to those texts to kind of verify what we've learned. Okay. And then we do, and people demonize a lot filling the blanks exercises, and I get it, but believe me, they're great to begin memorizing verb tenses. That's another issue. People think that memorizing a verb tense is like, soy, eres, es, somos, soy, son, estuve, estuviste. No. Memorizing a verb tense is, again, it's like vocabulary. It's getting a lot of exposure to that.
So the key would be to learn grammar within context.
Exactly. Learn grammar within context and speak that grammar. Speak that grammar doesn't mean to have a full, fluent conversation. It's just like, okay, yesterday I went to the movies. Next Thursday, I'm going to go to, Barcelona. That's why classes are very important, because they give you the opportunity to see the grammar, and immediately after, or very shortly after seeing the grammar, being able to express yourself in that grammar. And that doesn't mean having a fluent conversation. It just means to practice the language within, with a control within a class.
All right. So, just a last question. If a student is still thinking to enroll your classes, what would you recommend him to do?
Well, first of all, I have a lot of people saying, I really, really, really want to learn Spanish, but I'm not prepared yet to have classes. That's like saying I want to lose weight, but I'm not ready to lose weight because I want to lose some more weight in order to then lose weight. It doesn't make any sense. So, if you really want to learn Spanish, and Spanish is your first foreign language, I'm sorry to tell you that you need classes. You're not that intelligent. And even if you are very intelligent, you don't know how to do it. You don't know the path to follow. So what was the question again?
Yeah, well, if anybody is interested in your classes, what would you recommend him to enroll?
Why? Well, first of all, because if you, again, as I was saying, if Spanish is your first foreign language, that I'm sure it is, I'm sorry to tell you that it's almost impossible to learn a first foreign language on your own. You can learn the second or third one on your own, but not a first language on your own. And what I try to do, I don't have any magic pills, guys. Like I don't have any magic pill. This is not like learn Spanish in 3 months. You're not gonna learn Spanish. You're not gonna get fluent in 3 months. But this is an opportunity to really be able to know what to do with your Spanish and how to do it efficiently, so that you don't spend a decade trying to learn Spanish and never getting out of the beginner level, the beginner plateau.
So doing that efficiently
Yeah.
is the key.
Hazme la pregunta de cuánto tiempo se tarda en llegar a la fluidez.
Okay, so how much time would you spend to be fluent in Spanish?
First of all, it depends on what do we consider fluency. But let's say fluency is what in Europe we call a B2 level. So basically a level in which you can have fluent conversations. Your Spanish is not perfect, but you can have fluent conversations. You can watch movies. You can read articles. You can do whatever you want with the language. Personally, I would say that takes, if you work every single day in an efficient way, it takes 2.5 years.
All right.
I'm always saying the same thing. You're 2.5 years away from getting fluent in the language, which is one of the best things you can do in this life. And I'm not kidding, for real. It changes your life completely. You have more information, more friends, more experiences, more everything. So yes, it takes time, it takes effort. It's difficult if we say it like that, but at the same time, it's very easy because it's an ABC. You have to do this, this, and this in this time, this time, this time. I haven't invented anything. Everything is already invented. So it's difficult in the sense that, yes, it requires time and effort, but it's easy because we know what to do and we know what works. So that's great.
All right. Thank you. That's
Thank you
all.
very much. Yeah.